It's ClipperBlogLive, playoff postgame edition. Clippers win 99-98 in a crazy victory over the Memphis Grizzlies. Here with me, as always, the usual crew from Brooklyn, Charlie Widows, from Alabama, Nick Flint, and from Oceanside, DJ Foster.
This show might seriously just be 5 minutes because I'm just gonna say I'm speechless over and over again. That was incredible.
Yes, DJ, please start us off with the your speechlessness.
I mean, how do you put a comeback like that into words? Like, I have no idea how they did it. Reggie Evans sparked it. Nick Young gave the Clippers everything they needed on the wing as far as, just not being afraid to shoot and pull. Chris Paul, closing it out at the end. It was everything we saw in the regular season from the Clippers. 3 quarters of just bad. And the fourth quarter comes around and Chris Paul just miraculously saves it. I have no idea how he does it. He outdid himself this time. We just saw that it's the greatest playoff comeback in the last 10 years. One of the greatest comebacks, obviously, of all time. Andrew, give us some stats on that, on this comeback real quick before we move on to
comeback. All right, I'm looking this up on the fly. But as I understand it, the Clippers were down 27 in the third quarter and 24. They cut it to 21 at the start of the fourth, and then they got down 24 points with about 9 minutes to go. And from there, they went on, I don't know, a 6,000-1 run. And the Grizzlies scored 3 points in the final 9 minutes.
Down to 24 points in 9 minutes. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. Charlie, what do you got?
It's unbelievable. It's like they're built so perfectly to like bring the expectations down so low. I mean, they can't stop anyone. They can't make any adjustments. The offense is sputtering, and all the other team has to do is get the ball out of Chris Paul's hands, and then you'll be fine. And all of a sudden, you just expect them to lose. And think about game 2, resting guys, and all of a sudden, it's this lineup: the Evans, Bledsoe, energy, defense, gritty,
the junk lineup.
It's amazing.
I love it. I love that it was those guys who did it, because me and you particularly have been just struggling with identity and like being like Goliath to the David, and I love that it was freaking our Reggie Evans minimum contract guy or whatever who comes, and Eric Bledsoe, the guy no one knows, that come in and lead this run. That's crazy.
Unbelievable.
Nick?
What else can you really say? When Nick Young powers one of the greatest comebacks of all time, we're not talking about Brandon Roy. We're not talking about in those 02 Eastern Conference Finals or semifinal, whatever it was. We're not talking about like Paul Pierce. We're talking about Nick Young. Like, we know that he can score, but the fact that it wasn't like a Chris Paul, Blake Griffin lineup that was just overpowering on offense, doing all the work. I literally changed the channel in the fourth quarter. I thought there was no freaking way. I saw Nick Young. Yeah, Nick Young took a quick 2 jumper that was open. It was a very Nick Young shot. Clanked that. They got a steal. The Clippers did, and then Chris Paul traveled, and I was like, well, this is done. And I started watching Mad Men, and then 2 Nick Young threes later, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Apparently I have to rewrite the entire dime for ESPN, and now I have to completely lose my melancholy attitude because the team has a chance to win this, and then close the game out defensively, offensively strong. I think the team that we saw in the fourth quarter is closer to what we'll see over the course of this series than what we saw in the first, but that's a very Clippers-centric point of view. That's all I got.
I can't even blame Nick for just changing the channel, because in that fourth quarter, my phone was just going crazy with my Laker friends just taunting me and just making fun of me, saying, oh, this is the Clippers, classic Clippers, they don't show up. Look, how do they do this?
Again and again. Yeah, one tweet. The Clippers made the playoffs as they were down 30. I could not stand seeing that. I saw, I think, about 20 different tweets proclaiming the Grizzlies a finals contender, calling for sweeps, calling for Mike Conley to be a finals MVP, pretty much, which was very weird. Yeah, I think everybody can slow their roll. Things have changed. Things done changed in one quarter. So
I have all this stuff. Go ahead, DJ.
Sorry, there's literally no lead now, pretty much, that we can say, oh, this game's done. Time to turn off the TV. Like, what is it? Like, the Clippers are going to have to be down 40 for that to ever happen with us, because we're always going to have this as Clippers fans going forward until we decide not to be Clippers fans for some reason, that if Chris Paul is there, you can come back from 27 down, 24 down with 8 minutes left. Oh, no, they're still in it. And for Chris Paul to go to Vinny Del Negro and say, put me back in. We're not done. We're not out of this thing. We're down 24 points. Like, he's delusional, right?
The Clippers were down 21 with 10 minutes to go in the fourth, and Chris Paul comes back into the game for Mo Williams, and they promptly lose 3 more points. It's 24, and then they start that crazy run back.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy, so powerful that it's even making people go back on their doubts about Tom Thibodeau leaving Derrick Rose in the game, saying, look what could have happened if he stayed in the game. I mean, that's how... people were so convinced that was the wrong decision that got him injured, and look at this. Now they're saying it could have. The other team could have come back.
Right. You just never know. Chris Paul is. I felt silly when I was writing all the playoff previews, and everyone was giving me a hard time because they were like, "Geez, this guy makes Chris Paul sound like Jesus Christ. Like, he's like, what's going on here? Like, why does he have so much faith in him?" And I was just like, well, you know what? Like, he can do it. The stuff that this guy does in the fourth quarter, no one else does.
Point God.
No one else does. We're not going to get into that because we don't want to ruin this show, and I'm sorry if I offended anyone by saying that, but it's just, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Guys, we should have expected...
Yeah, and not to downplay Chris Paul earlier, because, I mean, he was...
Go.
Well, I was just going to say, guys...
I mean, Bledsoe hit some shots down the stretch. Push this lag.
You go, Nick. Okay, I just want to say...
I'm going.
Oh, man. Listen, the blueprint was already there, guys. Back in November 29th, 2009, a game I attended, the Clippers were losing to the Grizz all game around 20 points, and they outscored them 33-7 in the fourth quarter. So if you didn't think this could happen, then it happened.
Yeah.
Wow. I just got in that we hit max users on this viewing, so it's in the future recording when people are watching the record of this. We apologize to everyone that wasn't able to watch this.
All our 12 regular viewers are like, what the heck? No one watches this. I thought I was the only one.
All right, but anyway, not to downplay. I kind of downplayed Chris Paul earlier, but I mean, Bledsoe, Chris Paul got, I think, Reggie Evans 2 different layups. Blake Griffin got going down the stretch in transition. That was huge. Paul, all night, I mean, he had some trouble getting through screens like on Conley, but he was playing the passing lanes, and we finally saw it pay off in that fourth. Just, I cannot get over it. I cannot get over how different things were.
Where do we sit for the rest of the series? Can Memphis come back from this? Is this just a one game? Everything starts over, game 2, or is this like a defining moment of this series that kind of buries them? Because this was great comeback, one of the most amazing comebacks ever, but also on the Memphis' side, 3 points in 9 minutes, one of the most epic collapses ever. Nick, you're shaking your head. What do you think?
Yeah, massive collapse. And one thing that might worry people is that I think it was it was Royce Webb earlier who had some very clutch post-game tweets. After those other historical comebacks that we're hearing about, 2002, and then last season, Brandon Roy had his famous, I think he had like a 19-point fourth quarter by himself to bring the Portland back against the Mavericks. And right after that, both of those teams that lost in terms of that comeback game ended up sweeping the series from then on out. But the difference here is that those were not 4 or 5 matchups. Dallas, DJ's girlfriend off camera. Everyone say hello to her.
Sorry.
Dallas last season was a much better team in terms of like your seeding, your regular season success, and then we know they went on to win the championship. In terms of like matching up, it was like Brandon Roy's last hurrah, a massive explosion. The difference here is that we're looking at a 4-5 matchup. We know that these two teams are extremely well matched. We saw it. The playoffs are different, but we saw it in the season series. We saw it over the course of the middle two quarters tonight, and obviously the game, 1-point win, no matter how that first or fourth goes. But now let's talk about that first that we've been kind of glossing over. If you want to look on the bad side of things.
No, let's not do that.
We have to.
I don't want to go to there. I just want to go to whether this was, for me, this is probably the greatest win I've ever experienced as a Clippers fan. Are you guys on the same page with that?
I'd be on.
Considering I can't remember what the clinching moment of 2006 was in the first round, that probably says it.
There was a great moment in 2006 where there's a video of it where Livingston gets a steal and finishes on a layup, and then they get another steal, and they're putting it away, and it's at Staples, and the crowd is going crazy, and that was fantastic. But the way they did this one is just, I don't know, it's literally the best moment in Clippers history that we experienced.
Yeah, I'm with that.
That's something,
Absolutely.
Well, here's something interesting because Daniel Bain just tweeted us, and Charlie, you were talking about this before we went on. I know it's a completely different Clip team, but was I the only one thinking about that 22-point comeback versus the Grizzlies in 2009?
Nice, yeah. It was a great game. I remember that game.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? The Clippers and Grizzlies have played a ton of crazy games throughout the last 3 years. There was the water main game in Memphis where they evacuated the building, and then Memphis came back and went on this huge run.
Torpedoed the whole season for the Clippers.
There was last season that game. The Clippers were up 30, and Memphis came all the way back in the last game of the regular season last year. So they've had a history of coming back on each other in crazy games.
I want to do some semblance of a analysis here, so if we can just pocket that fourth quarter for 5 minutes, and let's talk about that first quarter for a second. What was everyone thinking? What went wrong in that first quarter? Charlie, why don't you start us off?
Well, I mean, it was a combination of things. First of all, Memphis just completely blitzed the Clippers with their energy, and it allowed them to push they forced turnovers, allowed them to push the pace, and what was the most surprising to me, and I think the most troublesome to the Clippers, was Chris Paul, of all people, wasn't prepared to play that pace. I could count on one hand the amount of times where he jumped to pass during the regular season and didn't have a good place to go. Like the second play of the game, he jumped and hit DeAndre Jordan on the run at the top of the key, which is a play that lesser point guards make. Chris Paul doesn't make that play ever. And it just seemed, the Clippers don't have an offense anyway, so when all it is what Chris Paul does, and when he couldn't do anything, they were completely out of whack. DeAndre Jordan also wasn't ready. He wasn't. He couldn't match. Maurice Spates obviously got in his face, and he backed down. With DeAndre, it takes a little bit for him to get involved, just because generally someone else has to get him involved. And he just, he wasn't there. Fortunately, as DJ, you tweeted during the game, he had a short leash, and Kenyon was much better, and Reggie Evans was much better down the stretch.
Yeah, I definitely great point on DeAndre Jordan, because I think a real key in terms of that offense was how he was not moving well at all on pick and rolls, especially, which was that's 90% of the Clippers offense right there. And Chris Paul, those are the two key players out of the park right there in terms of that pick and roll. DeAndre Jordan, best screen setter, best finisher, arguably, for the Clippers this season, even in limited touches. And then Chris Paul, even when the Grizzlies weren't particularly blitzing, they were sort of, and I didn't expect this, they kind of asked him to penetrate, asked him to do more of the work himself, just in the initial pick and roll action. And between he and DeAndre, they simply could not get it done. They looked completely out of sync. And then we saw Caron, Andrew pointed it out earlier on, that he was forcing some things. There was, I think, 2 offensive fouls called. Tried to get Blake going in the post, but simply put, Zach Randolph is going to have an advantage there in terms of the fact he has length and he has size, so he's going to be able to limit if Marc Gasol is right there behind him, contesting, sealing out. So the first quarter just had all of the issues that you have for that Clippers offense. And then defensively, we saw struggles with the pick and roll there, and the Grizzlies are not a particularly good pick and roll team. OJ Mayo opened up. I think he had one of his threes there. Mike Conley had two of his. Both
with
of them
Mo Williams on him.
Yeah.
By the way, instead of Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah, DJ was calling very early for an Eric Bledsoe substitution, and we saw, hey,
yeah, I think it was 2 minutes in the game.
Yeah, let's try that sooner on Wednesday. Let's get Eric Bledsoe in there much sooner if things are going badly on defense, especially. And then Marc Gasol also, who we faded down the stretch. A lot of credit to Reggie Evans and the fact that the Grizzlies only went at him in isolation a couple of times, which is very useful because Reggie Evans can't play post defense. But yeah, watch out. I would still watch out for Marc Gasol over the course of this series because he was the story offensively for the Grizzlies. He killed it in terms of passing, finishing, everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. Before we go to a DJ, I just want to give a brief props to Charlie because he's been begging to see a Bledsoe Paul backcourt for well over a month now, and every time he's out there, he does something good. And he's just like, just put Bledsoe with Chris Paul and let's see what they can do. And apparently, coming back from 24 down is what they can do. Back to the first quarter, though, DJ. What else do you have to add about that?
Before Bledsoe became cool, Charlie, the original Clipster with Eric
He was always
Bledsoe.
cool to me.
That's right. Charlie knew about him way before you other suckers. But no, the first quarter, everything that these guys said. I mean, the perimeter defense was my big thing. The way the Grizzlies were playing it was that, they were closing out very hard on Randy Foye and Caron Butler to the point where they're just flying out, letting Foye and Butler go by them because they know that they're not going to hurt them at the rim with Marc Gasol there to contest shots. So they really packed it inside, but flew out on shooters, chased those guys off the three-point line. And I thought really it completely discombobulated the Clippers. Offensively, they started taking bad shots once that crowd was roaring in Memphis. You could tell that the Grizzlies were just kind of off and running and that the Clippers were shook a little bit. And the second quarter, it was a lot of the same. There were some, bad mismatch problems. Gasol, again, of course, from the high post, dangerous. But really, I think the guys that turned it around, like you said, were Nick Young, who played really well in the second quarter, and we got a little glimpse of what he was going to do later in the game. And when the Clippers went to Reggie Evans, he immediately came in, got some good defensive rebounds, and played well. So let's give credit to Vinny where credit is due. Yeah, maybe he didn't make the best adjustments, but he went with Nick Young and Reggie Evans and stuck with them in the fourth quarter. It didn't pull them towards the end of the game, let them finish it out. And going to Kenyon Martin on Rudy Gay in the last possession. You go with your veteran, your smartest guy. Rudy Gay wants to shoot a jumper in that situation. Kenyon can get a hand up and contest it a little bit better than any of the shorter guys. That was a great call, I thought. We're going to see a lot of that jumbo package, I think, with Caron Butler apparently broken hand. So we don't know what his availability is going to be when he's coming back. So we could see more of Kenyon covering Rudy Gay as the series goes on. So far, so good.
So let's talk about some of the role players that contributed to this great win. Michael Solomon tweets in, what does Reggie have to do to get 20 to 25 minutes every game? Charlie, do you think that Reggie's performance tonight is something that they can duplicate throughout the series, or is it just one of those...
Sure, yeah. I think we get caught up a little bit in, kind of just labeling guys. Reggie Evans isn't a great defender. Well, in some cases, he's physical and energetic, and sometimes that's the kind of defense that you need. Clearly, part of Memphis's approach tonight was to just be aggressive and get in the face of the Clippers. And, maybe over a whole season or in a lot of matchups, that's not Reggie Evans isn't the guy you want in there guarding someone. But tonight, you could tell in the post, Marc Gasol didn't want someone just banging him in the back. He didn't want someone pushing him out. And, maybe this series, obviously, if this is going to be the style of the series where physical play is allowed, that was a big deal, I think, tonight, that Blake got hit a lot. I've been pretty tough on Blake and the flopping and stuff like that, but tonight they were letting it go. And in that case, yeah, you absolutely can use Reggie Evans.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to say that after the first quarter, I really thought that they needed to bring Reggie Evans in. DeAndre, Blake, and Kenyon are all decent rebounders, but for whatever reason, they're just not the best at boxing people out and going after those balls that kind of bounce between players. And after the fourth quarter, I think I looked it up, and the Clippers were losing 17-11 in the rebounding battle. They'd given up like 5 offensive rebounds or something like that. And they finished the game 47-41, just totally turning that rebounding battle around. Back to you, DJ.
Yeah, I think everyone on the Grizzlies front line kind of wants to push and bully their way to rebounds, to offensive rebounds. And I don't think you can push and bully Reggie Evans.
Right.
I think if that's your strategy and Memphis was aggressive and they were outworking the Clippers, hey, no one's more aggressive and no one's going to outwork Reggie Evans. I mean, on most nights, right? So why not go to Reggie some? I don't think it's a permanent strategy. I don't think Reggie Evans is going to play 35 minutes a night. I don't want him playing over DeAndre all the time, but yeah, give him some good minutes. He needs to be out there. He makes a difference. He does. He gets defensive rebounds and he changes the energy of the game. He's just kind of one of those guys that can really make a difference.
Yeah, great point. Great point from Charlie about if they allow guys to be physical, then this will be the best series.
Yeah.
These will be the best games of Reggie Evans' career, because his real issue in the post is that, he fouls too much because he's undersized, he can't jump, he isn't going to be able to contest shots. But if they allow him, like Zach Randolph with Blake, just, as Charlie alluded to, then he can push anybody out. And, if the Grizzlies have Marc Gasol and Zebo shooting fadeaway jump shots all night long, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, if we're gonna sumo wrestle in the post, go ahead, Zach Randolph. We'll throw Reggie on you. Have fun.
Right before they went on the big run, I was thinking to myself how much Craig Smith would be welcome at that point on the Clippers. They're just someone to be just strong and could go at the opponent. And that was before I remember Reggie Evans was still in the rotation, because he isn't always in the rotation. But yeah, he was big.
You know what? Let's give Reggie some credit too while we're here, because he finished at the rim tonight on a couple of occasions. And usually he doesn't do that or doesn't even look to do it. And he had I think his first bucket, he went right.
And one.
Yep. And one tough right. I mean, going up strong. You love to see it when you just kind of knew. That was the thing. You didn't know the comeback was coming, okay? I'm not saying that. But you knew that Memphis' play was a little unsustainable from the first half, because they shot 83% from 3. They were hitting everything from the outside. They had 2 turnovers. Memphis takes care of the ball very well. It was pretty unsustainable in the first half. But the 2 guys who really played well, Nick Young in the first half played really well, and I believe Reggie Evans had limited time in the first half. If I'm making this up completely, I apologize. But he played well in his first opportunities to get into the game too. And it was those guys in the fourth quarter who kept playing well. And sometimes you just got to go to the hot hand. And here's hoping that they stay hot for the rest of the series, because they're going to need them.
Yeah. Another Twitter question, and John Paul Manahan, he wants to know, how the heck did Zebo only get 6 points today? Nick, you want to take this one? Oh, yeah. Charlie, you can follow.
Yeah,
well,
Charlie,
just a quick answer is that, guys, he's not the same guy who was in last year's playoffs. Even as much as any Zebo fan will tell you, and I'm one of them, he's a good player, but he wasn't that. He's not that all the time. So that's why.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give credit to Blake, because a lot of his misses were, they were trying to go at Blake, and Blake picked up a few fouls. He was in. Did he end up with 5 on the night? I think something like that.
6.
6? Oh, he did foul out.
Oh no! Oh, you're talking fouls?
Yeah.
I'll look that up while you keep talking.
Yeah. Anyway, he picked up some fouls on Blake, but even when he was out, 5. Blake forcing him out, he was shooting fadeaways over Blake. People have harped on Blake's defense, and he's been worse in isolation and worse as a post defender this season than he was last season, according to Synergy. But generally speaking, you're not going to be able to totally abuse Blake in the post, even if, we look back to the regular season, Patrick Patterson had a couple of baskets on him. But if you really look back to that game, Patterson wasn't dominating. It is not. I wouldn't recommend the Grizzlies, use that as a tactic to try to match up Blake Griffin and Zach Randolph one-on-one. And then if you got Kenyon Martin and or Reggie Evans in there, even if you get like a cross-screen switch, or if you have Kenyon Martin on him, on Zach Randolph all the time, he's not going to be able to take advantage of that unless he's just having an on night with his jumper. And in terms of contested jumpers, no one is just going to hit those consistently. Least of all, Zach Randolph with weak legs playing the most minutes of the entire season coming off an injury.
Well, that's the thing with Zach Randolph. When he's not right, he wants to go to that fadeaway, long, looping jumper. We saw it when he was the Clipper. Whenever he was banged up or hurt, he wants to face up and shoot that jumper. He doesn't want to go and do a bunch of post moves. He's going to crash the glass, and he's going to shoot that contested jumper. That's his game right now. And honestly, it's not like Charlie said, it's not at the level that it was last year. He's just not that guy.
Okay. Let's talk about another potential long-term issue out of this game. Caron Butler fractured his left hand sometime in the third quarter. I don't really know what it came from. But do you think that that could be a positive, or is that just going to torpedo their coverage on Rudy Gay? Charlie, you want to take us with that one?
I think if it's a positive, it's one of those things where something positive will happen, and then the narrative will say we look back in retrospect, and it's because of that it happened. No matter how slow his feet move on defense, or how much he loves taking long twos over wide open threes, he and Nick Young are the only wings that can really play in the playoffs, and just an extra body is helpful. I don't see it helping them. It was curious how quickly he was back in his suit on the bench afterwards. I'm not sure if that's a good sign or a bad sign, but I think they could use him.
He was probably just eager to show the suit off because it was pretty nice.
It was a nice suit.
Yeah, he got your playoff best. It's his Sunday best. I think they're gonna miss him. With Caron, here's the thing. He's a guy that can get his shot off regardless because he's got that high release. And against good defense, Caron can, if he's hitting, he can make that shot. Even with a good closeout, with a guy like Tony Allen or Rudy Gay right in his grill, he can at least get his shot off, and he's confident enough to shoot it. Whereas Randy Foye, on the other hand, or even Mo Williams, if they're covered tightly, they can't do anything. They can't get that shot off since they're so much smaller. So Caron as a bailout guy, and we saw it earlier in the year, has his value. And I know it's, overworked and it's cliche or whatever, but having a guy with playoff experience obviously helps as well. So I think losing him hurts.
He was the only one doing that kind of stuff to start the game. I think he had 10 points in the first quarter. I mean, he came out playing. He came out to score.
But were you guys happy with Caron the whole night? I know he came out fast, but it seemed like as the game went on, he started pressing a little more. And throughout the season, he hasn't been too big of an offender of this, but it seemed he generally would pass the ball and keep that offense going. But second and third quarter, it really felt like to me that he was stopping the ball and trying to make too much happen on his own. And when he went down is when the offense, well, I don't know. We can't even say for sure what hits that offense. With pixie dust or something. But
magic.
Were you happy with his performance up until he got hurt, DJ?
I wouldn't say happy. I guess it was kind of expected. He took some tough shots. He made some. He missed some. He played okay defense sometimes on Rudy Gay. Other times Rudy Gay, got an easy shot or got by him. My expectations are pretty low for Caron at this point. So in at least the first quarter, I thought he was exceeding him. Overall, he played pretty much the type of game that I thought he would. I definitely think going forward, though, it's another guy. It's a guy with size. Now the Clippers don't have a guy with size. Kenyon Martin might have to play the three. I don't know how floor spacing is going to work there. Nick Young is going to have to step up big time. I feel like he's going to be the recipient of the majority of the minutes. So.
Yeah, I'm not too worried in terms of, can Nick Young fill in Caron's fill in his minutes pretty capably? Probably so, but going back to what Charlie said, you want as many options as possible. You want, Caron offers good things, and Nick Young is not always going to be like he was tonight. So, if you don't have a hot hand to ride if Caron's hand is in a cast and on the bench.
Very true.
So let's talk about the things that were sustainable and were not sustainable, since Nick so generously points out that we're not going to get this kind of fourth quarter production from Nick Young. Charlie, what do you think is sustainable for the Clippers and Grizzlies that they can take away from this?
Yeah, we've talked about it all season, and it's the idea of a third scorer on the Clippers, and we've taken turns debating whether Mo Williams is sustainable or Randy Foye or Caron Butler, now Nick Young. I think what we found is that someone there is going to score points because of the attention that Blake Griffin and Chris Paul draw. It's probably not going to be Nick Young tomorrow. I mean, other than Randy Foye, no one's really sustained kind of a streak of being that person. But within the game, I think that's a sustainable thing, that whatever the Clippers are doing offensively draws enough attention, and Chris Paul is adept enough at getting the ball to shooters where they need it to be, that at this point you can count on 3 scores from the Clippers. And unless Blake Griffin is completely silenced like he was in the first half, or Chris Paul, frankly, I've never seen Chris Paul in that kind of a funk before, like he started in. Unless those things are happening, what's sustainable is the formula, kind of like the Chris Paul does this, Blake Griffin does this, and then one of those wings really steps in.
Yeah. There's your offense. I'll focus a little bit more on the D. 11 for 16, 70% three-point shooting for Memphis tonight. That's the first thing you look at. Many of those open for O.J. Mayo and Mike Conley. You don't want to leave. Those are basically the only 2 guys that shoot league average or above league average for Memphis from 3. Rudy K is right around there. You don't want to leave them open, but at the same time, if you go into the screen on Mike Conley, he's not going to hit 5 of 5 from long range. O.J. Mayo is not going to be sinking 4 of 6 every time he's off the ball, and I think 2 of those makes were hotly contested during some of Randy Foye and Mo Williams' minutes on him. But we can look at also, though, Memphis competed excellently on the boards. Marc Gasol had an excellent game distributing and hitting some open shots. That you'll see game in and game out. But also, we saw some struggles from Zach Randolph, and I think that Blake will continue to play him to a standstill. I think Kenyon can make a big enough impact to also basically counteract whatever you see from the bench in terms of a Dante Cunningham or Maurice Spate. So, the front court, matches up pretty well in general outside of that Marc Gasol matchup. I would worry about Rudy Gay if, Nick Young is suddenly thrust into a role where he's got tired legs, so he's not scoring as well. He's playing more minutes than he's used to this entire season with the Clippers, and he's having to guard somebody who's going to attack him. We saw Rudy Gay post up multiple times, scored over Chris Paul once. So I would worry about more efficient games from Rudy Gay, and then continued efficiency from Marc Gasol as the Grizzlies figure out, if we have to play, for instance, Reggie Evans for long periods of time, they're definitely going to start attacking him, making him commit fouls, which we didn't see as much of tonight.
Yeah, I think sustainable Marc Gasol's performance. I think he can pretty much. There's no good matchup the Clippers have for him. He can draw the bigger guys out. He can punish the smaller guys on the low posts. He's a great passer. That's definitely a sustainable performance for him. Memphis perimeter shooting early on, unsustainable. Memphis' defense early on, sustainable. I think they can play that brand of defense and really give the Clippers a hard time. 24-point runs, unsustainable, but maybe sustainable. I don't know. I mean, we saw it in the regular season. Maybe it is sustainable, these crazy, unbelievable comebacks. Blake Griffin hitting 2 clutch free throws. Probably unsustainable, but you never know. I'm not going to rain on anybody's parade tonight. I think this is, like I said before, one of the greatest wins in Clippers history of the franchise. And for their fans, since 2006, it's been a long, long, ugly road. So it's nice. It's nice to the return to the playoffs with something like this,
Those that 24-point run in the fourth quarter, it sounds completely insane and unsustainable. But when I was watching this game, especially after that first quarter when they were down 16, it just reminded me so much of the last 2 games that the Clippers played with Oklahoma City, where Oklahoma City just came out guns blazing and it didn't seem like the Clippers would contain them. And then the Clippers slowly crept their way back in. And I said, okay, well, let's wait for the third quarter. Let them come back out in the half and see if the Clippers can regroup and try and make a game out of this. Of course, the Grizzlies pulled away even further, and I thought it was completely over. But they said it on the telecast today. The Clippers have the most victories coming back from double-digit deficits. So, I don't know, DJ. Maybe you're in for a lot of 24-1 runs.
Sure.
Fourth quarter.
I'll take it. I've grown accustomed to not believing in this team in the first 3 quarters and then just having them pull it out in the fourth. So sure, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not sustainable, even though it is. But I think part of it, like the reason why they're the best team at coming back from deficits, whatever that skill is. I mean, obviously there are guys like Paul and Griffin, and they have the will and the skill to make it happen. But they also have kind of like a lineup that they can bring in, like we saw tonight, that's suited to go on those kinds of runs. Bledsoe causing pressure, Evans gobbling up extra possessions for his team and taking away from the other team. And it really, it almost, Kenyon Martin and DeAndre Jordan, who either contest shots or bother shots and have length. It lends itself to, it's like an offense in the NFL that can throw the deep ball. Like, it really is built. So, if you're not on your game, if the other team's playing conservatively, these guys can make a run.
Yeah.
JP Manahan just let us know that it was a 28-3 run, not a 24-1 run.
There was a 24-1 run at one point.
Aggregate, it's 28-3. How could we forget that the Grizzlies could only score 3 points in 9 minutes? So
That's true. That's true.
yeah. So looking ahead, looping this all the way back to the beginning, when DJ wants to know are the Grizzlies just going to are they going to collapse because this was just a back-breaking loss? What's the deal here, Charlie? You want to lead us off?
I don't see them collapsing. I mean, they just have too many good young, aggressive, energetic guys. I do think, for all the talk we had about home court advantage, the Grizzlies' home court advantage was the first quarter of this game, and they had it, and they seemed like they were using it to their advantage, and they, obviously that slipped away. So, it's a tie series now. So, I never expect to see Chris Paul play like he did at the beginning, and I can't imagine it happening again.
Yeah, I think if you look at this big picture, Blake Griffin and Chris Paul didn't play particularly well, and the Clippers managed to come back. So that's obviously great. I'm going to hit you with a very Nick Flint-like comment here. I'm going to steal Nick's comment before he can go. So the Clippers, I don't think it's that big of a deal. The Clippers retained home court advantage that they should have had all along. Nick?
Very nice. That is excellent. Oh man, I had completely forgotten about home court advantage at this point, though. I don't know. I sometimes wonder how big of an impact is that going to make. It's been a while since we've heard a playoff crowd in Staples. It's 06, but definitely excited to hear that. Excited to see this next game in Memphis and see especially what happens. We keep going back to it. Reggie Evans, huge key in this game. What's going to happen in terms of the rebounding? Can they keep him off the court and get solid rebounding? Is DJ going to play better? Or not you, DJ, DeAndre Jordan. And then
better. You don't know.
Yeah, you might. Did you hold on?
Yes.
We've got enough on this Grizzlies game. A brief interruption. DJ.
We're going meta. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have, what was it, a 12 trillion in your pickup game Thursday?
I knew you were going to go there, especially after I gave
guys.
it to you. I knew you were coming back. Yeah, I narrowly avoided a 12 trillion. All I did was stand in the corners the entire game. My basketball game is very good. Charlie is embarrassed. Charlie's an actual, really, good basketball player who played, legitimate basketball. And I'm like, I played junior college for 2 months.
I had a 12 trillion in college, that's for sure.
Did you nail a 12 trillion in college?
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Why don't you explain a 12 trillion for anyone that doesn't know what you're talking about?
That's a good point. A 12 trillion is when in the box score, obviously the first thing you see in a box score is minutes played. So that's the first number. So I played 12 minutes in this game. And then as the box score goes on, there's if you don't do anything and you're worthless like I am, you just get zeros. So 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks. That was me. And all those zeros add up to a trillion. So it's whatever the first number is and all those zeros. 12 trillion is very rare. If you want to go look through box scores, just go look up Brian Cook's game log as a Clipper, and you can get a good idea of
shot attempts, DJ. Field goal attempts really hurt that.
Oh, yeah, Brian Cook. Speaking of which, let's
That's
look
true.
back. Let's look back again at that Brian Cook deadline trade. Thanks so much to the Wizards. Nick Young tonight, powering the team to victory.
And chipping
Yeah,
off
no
Nene.
kidding.
And also, speaking of a trillion zeros, a shout out to Floyd Mayweather, who put $1.7 million down on the Clippers to cover tonight.
No.
Amazing.
No.
Yeah.
You're allowed to bet that much on things?
Apparently, he had to go to multiple different sports books to do
7
it.
different sports books.
Like that guy needs any more money. He gets the Clippers to cover a 28-point. You know he wasn't even watching either. He's like Nick. He turned off the TV.
Okay, before we sign off here, let's take a couple more Twitter questions. Clipper wants to know, Clipper with a Q, if Butler is out, who plays the 3 position? Charlie, you want to take that one? We'll start. Let's say, because it'll be by committee, I'm sure.
That'll be Nick Young, I believe.
Yep.
Nick Young. And let's see here. Roberto Rodriguez says, I disagree that the Clippers can play small. Memphis realizes they fell in love with the 3-ball and will adjust to make this an inside series. Any comments, DJ, to that?
I mean, if they're gonna post up Rudy Gay, they're gonna post up Rudy Gay, I guess. I'm not really scared of Rudy Gay on the block. I'm scared of him slashing and driving and kicking and penetrating. If they want to post up Rudy Gay against Nick Young, go for it. Because then you got Zach Randolph, not on the block, and you don't have Marc Gasol on the low block. I'm not saying that the Grizzlies can't post up Rudy Gay, because they obviously can't, but I think there's better stuff on the menu for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's an oversimplification. I've heard Charles Barkley saying it on TNT's post-game show. Memphis shot 1 3-pointer in the fourth quarter during their collapse. That wasn't their offensive issue. What we really saw tonight was a lot of, they would get Marc Gasol in the mid-post area. He would distribute cutters. They have a nice backdoor cut to Rudy Gay that we didn't even see tonight. The play that they love to run that I'm sure they will get the Clippers with, and I'll be like, oh, I knew that was going to happen. You love that, don't you, when your team is so bad on defense that you can see them coming? And then, Zach Randolph obviously had his attempts. I think we'll see them get him in different situations. The three-point line was not an issue, and I don't think it'll continue to be an issue. They'll make fewer, but at the same time, they're a team that knows their strengths and weaknesses. Lionel Hollins makes good adjustments, and one thing I would be worried about is seeing a lot more action in terms of a Zach Randolph post-up, Marc Gasol post-up on low block if the Clippers do end up having to go with a smaller lineup, or even one of the regular lineups, because off-ball cuts we saw tonight were killing them, not only for Marc Gasol in the mid-post, but even off cuts in the low post, just right across the lane, guys falling asleep. Big issue for the Clippers tonight was wing and guard help in the lane.
I have a quick follow-up to that. The more athleticism the Clippers can get on the court, the better.
Yeah.
And Nick Young is an athletic guy. Eric Bledsoe is an athletic guy. I don't think having those guys suck up more of the minutes hurts the Clippers. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
Also, Kmart at the 5, another one like that.
Yeah. It is crazy how much energy he brings, even though he's, your veteran that has had microfracture surgery or whatever it was. Just comes out and, I think he had a goaltend and a couple of 3 blocks or something like that. Just a ridiculously energetic player.
Well, that's what you love from Kenyon Martin, right? That's the whole reason the Clippers brought him on, is because he can guard 2 through 5. He's that flexible bench defender that can come in and really guard anyone, or as Kevin Arnovitz said, can guard 17 different positions, which is pretty incredible.
Going back to Rudy Gay for a second, I know he's probably their best perimeter offensive player, and 8 for 20. He'll probably be a little bit better going forward, but mostly I'm only worried about Rudy Gay if the game is close and he just is going to shoot a 3-point shot. I know he's not an excellent 3-point shooter, but I think True Hoop said a couple of weeks ago that his clutch stats go up considerably.
Yeah, he shoots it at his best in the fourth quarter and when the score is close.
Yep. So, game 2. Who do you guys have winning that one? Charlie, you want to start that one off?
I think Memphis will go up. with a 26-point lead in the fourth quarter, and then the Clippers will come back like usual, sustainably. I think the Clippers. I think it took a quarter, maybe a half, for the Clippers to realize they had to punch back. You know, they had to punch Memphis in the mouth, just like they were getting in the first quarter. I think Clippers win again.
Score?
101-90, Clippers.
Wow. DJ?
You know, my head says Memphis in game 2 because they're really going to want to protect home court. They were dominant for 3 quarters. I mean, they kicked the Clippers' tail for most of this game. Everything my head tells me says Memphis. But gosh darn it, I'm just going to say the Clippers win game 2. I don't care. I'm overriding my brain because I do that all the time. Anyways, so I'll say Clippers 98, Grizzlies 92. Clippers pull off another big win in Memphis.
Nick, how about you?
I feel almost the exact same way as DJ, and I was feeling horrible tonight as the Clippers were getting blown out because of, Clippers in 6. I think people are really overrating the Grizzlies. Clippers are down 30. I've got to pick the Clippers too, though. Why not?
Everybody snort that pixie dust.
Yeah. I can't resist. This game was so weird, and then we're on such a high. I'll say Clippers 95 to Memphis 88.
That's good hustle, Nick. That is good hustle.
Thanks, champ.
I thought that watching that Denver Lakers game earlier in the day, I really thought Denver was going to give them a lot of trouble, and when the Lakers just destroyed them, it made me really question, like, I don't know anything about basketball, apparently, because I thought this was going to be a series. And then when this Grizzlies-Clippers game was going on, and Grizzlies were just having their way with the Clippers, like, clearly I don't know anything about basketball, so I'm just going to shut up for the rest of these.
These late games were perfect for, you need a winning veteran, you need, like, playoff experience, you need a friggin' franchise that's used to winning. I'm so glad the Clippers won so that I do not have to hear about that.
And the fourth quarter just kind of reaffirmed everything I thought, that the Clippers can get hot through large stretches of a game, and the Grizzlies struggle to score at times. And not just for a 2 or 3 minute stretch. They can go silent for 9 minutes. We just saw it today. It's probably,
and as everyone said, the Clippers it isn't like it was the Clippers' defense. We know that even when they're good, they're going to make mistakes, and yet still,
right.
Memphis, a 20th rated offense.
Exactly.
Listen to these two chuckleheads. They're like, oh yeah, no, totally, Memphis. They suck. Like the Clippers were getting their butts kicked. I knew Memphis was going to be a tough matchup.
The Grizzlies are good.
Full credit for pretending.
I definitely think the Grizzlies are good, and I think they could probably beat 6 or 7 other Western Conference playoff teams, but just some of the deficiencies they have, it plays completely into the Clippers' strengths. The Clippers aren't that good defensively, and the Grizzlies are known to go a little quiet at times on offense. So
yeah,
I feel good that was at least proven tonight.
Yeah,
and Denver sucks. Let's get that out.
Yeah, JaVale McGee, you really cannot trust. That is not like some kind of joke. That you really cannot trust JaVale McGee. But yeah,
untrustable.
I'm a little bit different from Andrew in regards to Memphis. I think both of these teams, Clippers and Grizzlies, are very flawed. The difference here is that, yeah, exactly. Where's the Clippers' weakness defensively? Mostly, they're one of the worst three-point shooting defensive teams in the NBA. But Memphis is not going to shoot like this no matter what. Memphis' strength on offense and defense. They force turnovers, benefit from those on the other end. The Clippers can limit turnovers. Didn't see it tonight. In the regular season, we saw it. Those coverages are changing up, though, so I am more worried now in terms of how the Clippers are going to do offensively night in and night out. But I don't think that we're going to see too many of these massive 20-0 runs, massive 20-point quarters. I think, but it's going to be closely contested.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to give my prediction. Game 2, Clippers are going to win 85-78.
Whoa!
You hate offense.
Low-scoring game. They're going to scream. Well, you also forget they're going to get 2 days off before Game 2, so they're only going to focus on defense the next 2 days.
There you go.
I think you're making a fundamental assumption there that's just not true. Andrew?
It's a gambler's fallacy.
That there's going to be a focus or maybe an adjustment.
We've gone on way too long, so
Greatest comeback ever!
Wrapping
Greatest
up.
comeback ever.
for
Oh, man.
Charlie Widows, Nick Flint, DJ Foster, I'm Andrew Hahn. Thanks.
Enjoy it.
Good night.